All right, we're going to wait one more minute. Looks like we're building to critical mass.
Can you hear now, Christina?
Well, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to another fabulous Finance and Operations Committee meeting. I hope everybody enjoyed the fifth Monday uh, of September. It's never realized before joining this board how few fifth Mondays are and how wonderful they can be in terms of creating a little bit of space in a monthly schedule. So hope everybody's doing well. So let's go ahead and jump right into the agenda. And the first items are the information only items. Are there any comments or questions related to these six information only items?
None from me.
All right, thank you. I had none either. So let's jump right into these abstracts. The first of which is a school improvement grant for HSC. Ms. Strand.
Hi. Yeah, so we are staying the course on this one, continuing to work on ensuring that we have improved attendance, keeping our graduation rate high, and improving our students' scores on tests like the SAT and the PSAT. We're continuing with some agreements. We're going to be working with Great School Partnership, Narrative 4, Gateway, campus of Connecticut Community Colleges. Sorry, hold on. I had the agreement up, but I didn't pull this up. I know I'm leaving someone out. Oh, and an equity organization that I'm excited about that will be working on things like the FAFSA and important work around college-going culture and future planning, but also community engagement, social emotional learning, support for students in the moment. So we're really excited about that one. We're going to finish off paying our multilingual learner tutor who was covered mostly by our carryover this year. Then for our staffing and attendance matters coordinator, some curriculum writing from our teachers, more beyond HSC event planning, and then after school support for second semester. We'll also be continuing with our support for our experiential co-curricular learning programs like our WILD program, and providing equipment for that program as well as our project-based learning and the building thinking classrooms model that is being adopted throughout the math department for the district. There are a few professional learning books in there, data-wise, which is something the district is doing, but we'd like to have it in everybody's hands here. Reclaiming Personalized Learning and Drive by Daniel Pink about how to build on internal motivation and really do project-based learning in a way that is rigorous and student-centered and focus on students attaining those goals we talked about. And then just some additional materials like some branded t-shirts and things that will help our attendance matters coordinator promote good attendance and reward it while also building that school spirit that keeps the students coming back.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I'll just say it sounds like a very well thought through plan you all have. And
Thank you.
thank you for the overview. Hearing nothing else on this one, we'll move on to the next one, 3.2, which is a Educators Rising mini grant. Ms. Natalino?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My apologies. I was running from point A to point B and I'm in my car. So our Educators Rising mini grant is a partnership with the Connecticut State Department of Education and PDK International, which owns Educators Rising curriculum. And we have been issued $25,000 to grow our education pathway. This is a jump from $5,000 last year at Just Cross to now supporting Cross, Hill House, and Metropolitan Business Academy. And so those are our three schools that have education programming embedded through our pathway model. A portion of the money will go to curriculum, but a good portion of the money is also going to be used to support students attending conferences, students collaborating with one another, and getting together as a group from the three schools, and also to support our lead teachers with with the work that they're going to need to do to continue to grow this pathway. So we are very excited that we were issued more funds. And we already have a partnership with Southern Connecticut State University for our pathway. So this curriculum really complements it nicely for what the work is that we are already doing.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions? I'll just say, it sounds like success if it's getting the extra funding to expand the program. So thank you very much for pursuing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. We'll keep on moving to 3.3, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Grant. Ms. Joseph Lumpkin.
Hi, good afternoon. So we are competing. I like to say that this is a competitive grant, although we describe the project as McKinney-Vento guarantees a free, appropriate public education for all homeless students. This grant that we applied through the state of Connecticut is one that is seriously competitive. We've been aggressive in applying for the maximum amount, and pre-COVID, we have achieved the maximum amount of $50,000. As you recall, we've come here with abstracts for many thousands more. In some cases, about $150,000 were allocated to support our students. We feel we're excited about this work, that at least we have this amount of dollars to support our most vulnerable students. Last year around this time, we had about 396 intakes completed, and we landed at the end of the year with a total of 1,136 students. Currently, we have 429 intakes completed, and it's up in the air where we land at this point. It may be slightly less, slightly more, but we anticipate around that amount. We usually are able to clean up our records to show students who have mostly left the city or left the state. It doesn't mean that their condition has improved. They have just migrated to other places that where they are in a perhaps a better situation. So that's where you see that reduced number from 1,136. That when we looked for those families this year, get a better understanding of where they are, that 1,136 is reduced starting this year as of October 7th. Today, 429 students. We're concerned that of the 11,036, only 24 of those families actually found leases in New Haven. So sometimes it's sort of moving the chairs around on the deck, that infamous deck, and very few families at this point actually find that permanency that we all hope for. Nonetheless, we go forward. We work very hard to identify them, and we use this $50,000 grant application to support their needs, whether it's through uniforms, but particularly to identify community-based resources that could support the students as quickly as possible with as many resources as possible.
All right, thank you very much. Any comments or questions? I'll just say thank you for sharing the numbers. it's a growing trend, it seems. And based on the numbers from last year, looks like we're on our way to be over 1,000 again this year before the year's out. Um, so yeah, thank you. It's a bit sobering, but
We're very fortunate, very blessed to have a great team. Danny Diaz, Abby Rivera, leading this work.
well, thank you for pursuing these funds. They seem well needed. All right, hearing nothing else on this, we'll move on to agreements. 4.1 is an agreement with Literacy Volunteers of Greater New Haven. Ms. Benora?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. So presenting this agreement, this is an agreement with Literacy Volunteers of Greater New Haven, in which New Haven Adult Education and the Board of Education just serves as a pass-through. So it's a state grant that's issued to all cooperating eligible entities across the different areas of our state to support their services that are in kind and free to New Haven residents in ESL and GED and tutoring services.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll go on to 4.2, which is an agreement with All Our Children Academy. Ms. Diaz Valencia? I don't see.
I'm happy to present in her
Ms. Durham.
stead. This is an agreement between the Board of Education and All Our Children Academy as part of the school readiness grant. This is a pass-through to this community site. It provides for 10 full-day, full-year preschool slots at the facility, as well as cost of living increases and private provider funds.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either, so we'll go on to 4.3, which is an agreement with Elm City Montessori. Ms. Bonanno?
Sorry, good evening. So this is our annual agreement for the cash payout that we are required by legislation to provide to Elm City Montessori local charter school. So the amount that you see in front of us, the $1.8 million, is the cash amount that we owe them after backing out all of the in-kind services that the district is providing, including all of their teaching staff, some support by their principal, some special education support, etc. And so this is the maximum amount that we have agreed to pay Elm City Montessori for this operating school year.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this one? I had none either. So thank you very much. We'll move on to 4.4, which is an agreement with Higher Heights Youth Empowerment Program. Mr. True?
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. So a brief description of the services. We've had this longstanding partnership with Higher Heights. It's a youth empowerment program that will offer programming during the school hours, which include the college prep, financial aid, budgeting, applications, college essays, parent workshops, and additional support and motivations around academic achievement. They've been established a college success organization with over 20 years experience, supporting our students with the planning process of college, and also additional support with FAFSA and scholarship opportunities. So it's a really great partnership with them as we continue to look forward and completing the work with them again this year.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this one? I'll just say I appreciated the addition of the overall report with all the data and statistics about how they've been doing it, not only career, but at HSC and I think Hill House.
Thank you.
For including that. It's always helpful to have that kind of data to see the impact of the funds.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing nothing else related to this, we'll go on to 4.5, which is an agreement with State Education Resource Center. Dr. Robles Rivas.
For Dr. Robles, and this is Rosalind Diaz, I'm a supervisor. And CERC will provide a unique training about building knowledge and skills related to English language development. Also, they will be implementing and teaching teachers and going to several schools throughout the district to support mainstream teachers and schools about shelter strategies to support English learners in the 4 domains of learnings, which are speaking, listening, reading, and writing.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this one? I had none either. So thank you very much. And we will go on, and it looks like we're about to hit the trifecta. 4.6 agreement with Trifecta Ecosystems. Ms. Strand.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, we're going to grow mushrooms, and I'm pretty excited. So we're getting a shipping container garden, and we got a grant from the Department of Agriculture to do this. What's interesting about this that's a little different from our other garden projects is that this is going to be tied to a course on entrepreneurism, using social media to promote the mushrooms that we're growing and work with Trifecta down the line eventually to hopefully turn this into some sort of business. Not yet, though.
Thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarbrough.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for bringing forward the program. Is the funding by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, is that specifically for this type of program, or is it general funding? You can choose what type of program to apply it?
It is. It was tied. It's all tied to having shipping container gardens.
Great. Thank you.
And I was just going to ask if you could just give us a reminder of the other hydroponic projects you all have been working with. This seems something you all have been digging into over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's been great. So we have raised beds in the parking lot where we've been growing all sorts of things. And that's been wonderful for our biology class, our AP environmental class, our environmental stewardship group. We also have an OCC program in the building this year, and I've been talking to them about how they can use those, and they were built with accessibility in mind. So we should be able to make that happen for all of their students when the weather gets nice again. And then inside, we've been growing lettuce and kale primarily in the hydroponic systems in the hallway, and then also some peppers and some smaller things in the biology classroom. And then we have koi fish that are also growing lettuce and kale. It's been great for the students to learn about ecosystems and have this hands-on learning experience. They do all sorts of work around looking at like algae under the microscopes and determine appropriate environmental factors that are going to help us grow the best produce we can, and then having fun giving it out to families. We have our PTSO and SPMT meetings in the room with the aquaponic system, and so giving out that lettuce to the families when they come, having some available when we do open house nights. It's just been a nice culture builder as well as an academic support.
Thank you for that overview, and you'll have to keep us posted when it's time for us to be able to purchase HSC mushrooms.
I sure will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Hearing nothing else on that, we'll just stick with Trifecta. And we'll move on to another agreement with Trifecta Ecosystems at Worthington Hooker.
So I'll be presenting this one this evening. I believe Margaret Mary is here, but may have to be rushing off to a different appointment. And so this is a presentation of phase 2 of the outdoor learning experience at Worthington Hooker. So last year, leveraging ARP funds, Hooker installed an outdoor garden space, which is completely led with their teachers and their students. There is an adjacent field to the garden space that's sort of just been an open field that the school is going to be working on leveraging to expand the outdoor garden space and also create an opportunity for active play as part of the school's Healthy Living Initiative. This project comes with the support from the PTO at Hooker, And so we're here tonight to ask for the board's support in expanding the outdoor learning environment at the Whitney Avenue location.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you for that walkthrough. And it looks like from the documentation that the funding is coming from the PTO.
That is correct.
correct?
That is
Okay.
correct. So the
Thank you.
PTO has been raising funds for this for quite some time. They got into the partnership with Trifecta last school year when they were able to leverage Art Besser funds, have raised funding and would like to expand. And so we'll be reimbursing the school district for this project once completed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I had a similar question and it was answered, so thank you. Seeing nothing else on this one, we'll move on to 4.8, which is an agreement with Cameos Consulting. Ms. Joseph Lumpkin.
Yes, I am here and want to give fair warning. I just got a sudden notice from NHPS computer system. It's about to shut down and restart in 5 minutes. So I will do my best to get through the next 1 minute or so. So we are in need of additional support for training with our restorative practices work. We have a new staff member coming on board. We've also have a resignation, and we have multiple needs. We have posted online to get one of the best possible services around to support this work, including the need for home visiting with some of our highest needs families. And we have selected Cameo Thorne as one of the best choices for us, as the best choice for us in this moment. And so we bring forward this contract where she will be providing professional development as well as supporting us with student needs, as well as staff needs and family needs to move forward our restorative practices work.
All right, thank you very much. Any comments or questions related to this one? I'll just say, I think many of us are very familiar with Ms. Thorne's work, having previously been working in the district since retired, but it has been a cornerstone of this work in the district. So it's good to see that's going to continue while other staff are coming up to speed. So thank you for that. Hearing nothing else on this, we'll go on to 4.9, a lease agreement with Gateway Partners for part of the first floor of 54 Meadow. Mr. Carter.
Good afternoon. This is an annual agreement we have for rental space at 54 Meadows. Not much has changed. There has been a slight increase in the rent of about 10%. We've run the agreement by Corp Counsel, and all the terms and agreements are sufficient. And we support renewal of this lease until we find a permanent place.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Attorney Alexiadis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I would just note this is the same exact lease as the previous fiscal year, just with the numbers being changed. But all the text is, the other text is the same.
All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else on this, we'll move on to 4.10, which is an agreement with United Illuminating. So, Mr. Aline or Mr. Carter?
Yes, this is an agreement that came to FNO and to the board several years ago. And it provides reimbursement for us to do energy savings at several schools. I think it's 3 or 4 schools. And we have completed most of the work, and we have communicated. There was a gap in the project management on our end. And so we were able to work with UI to satisfy their needs for what we were going to complete. And they have, by renewing this agreement, they will allow us to apply for grants in the next fiscal year, which will be able to provide energy innovations and also projects at several other New Haven public schools. But UI has been a great partner, and we have satisfied their requirements.
Thank you. Attorney Alexiadis?
Thank you. I would just note that this is the energy incentive reimbursement portion of the previous agreement and project that was previously approved. So where you see in the description, and Mr. Carter can correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but where you see in the description it says an amount not to exceed $819,000. That amount has previously been approved, and 90% of it has already been paid and work performed. So the approval that we're seeking tonight is for the agreements that are attached as UI energy agreements for the incentive program reimbursement aspect, which totals by my calculations about $115,000, $115,713 between the 4 different school agreements and 4 different schools.
Okay, thank you for that. Comments or questions?
Yes, thank you for that. I guess the one question is, what's the projected savings for us? How do we, there's a cost savings after this output?
Yes, there is a cost savings. When Mr. Aline comes back, we'll provide you that information, but there are projected cost savings throughout the life of the project.
Attorney Alexiadis?
Yeah, there are some worksheets attached to the agreements that may answer that question either in whole or in part.
Thank you.
I think one thing that we need to do is to follow up on Attorney Alexiadis' comment about the total cost. So my understanding from what you're saying is that the 819 number it's not that it's misleading, but that was the full amount, much of which has been expended. And so there's a smaller amount that's actually what we're moving forward with.
Yes, it's a small amount we're moving forward with.
There's a smaller amount that a small portion of the work remains to be done, and a small amount outstanding with the contractor. But that's under the prior approval. The fiscal year has ended that fiscal year, so we'll need to address that with purchasing and operations to determine the best way to address that. About 10% of the $819,000 remains outstanding, but these agreements are only for the reimbursement that we're going to get $115,000 plus once we enter into these agreements.
Okay. So I guess my question for the group here is, should this memo, either the memo or the subject line or something be expanded to kind of explain some of this?
I can work with Mr. Carter on that on the next week.
Okay.
And there's also, I should note, there's also some language in those agreements that would require Alder approval. So we're going to have to address that also, either getting rid of the language or taking it to the Alders. Given that these are boilerplate contracts, it's hard to get rid of language. We're probably going to the Alders, but
okay,
it's also after next week.
So is this something that we think that this is going to be ready to go by the board meeting next Tuesday? I think it's next Tuesday, right? Monday's a holiday. So is this going to be ready to go then, or should we wait?
I expect that our part, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on your words, but I expect that our part will be ready.
Okay. I mean, we've done this before, and it becomes cost effective with the energy savings, and it meets our climate resolution goals of retrofitting schools with energy efficient stuff. Like this is LED lighting, etc. Right? So we've continuing on the process of retrofitting these schools. So.
And
All right.
Mr. Lean probably knows better than I, but my experience with LED lighting, at least in my house, is that it lasts longer. So while there's a higher upfront cost, the ongoing maintenance is less because you don't have to replace the bulbs as often.
That's correct. In theory, the bulbs are supposed to last much longer than your fluorescent bulbs. So there is a savings there. And then, of course, there is the energy usage savings. So there is a time frame. I think looking at the documentation, looks like it's about 5 years when you break even. And then a year after that, you're in a savings mode. So long term, there is a savings.
All right. Okay, so it sounds like we can move forward, and we're going to get some adjustments to this, just to clarify some of the details of this. All right. Any other comments or questions on this one? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move into, looks like purchase orders next. 5.1 is purchase order with Lexia Learning. Ms. Jackson?
Hi, how are you? This is our purchase order that we have for Lexia Learning. Again, this Lexia Learning allows for us to be able to provide licenses. We've been utilizing licenses with Lexia Learning for quite some time in order to be able to support the science of reading. Again, it actually helps us with progress monitoring and also provides a supplemental tool for our special education teachers. This year, what we've added for some of our older students is really the opportunity to provide them with some support. So again, this is what Lexia Learning supports.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions?
Yes. Thank you for presenting this. And do we pay for the total or just what we use?
We only pay for what we use as licenses. It's license based.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. And I had nothing further. We'll move on to 5.2, purchase order with NCS Pearson. Ms. Jackson.
Yep. That is allows for us for our psychological testing. We've engaged in this for the last few years where we used to have paper and pencil, where we would do psychometric testing for our students. This allows for us to do that digitally. It makes it a more efficient practice for us. So it gives us a lot of our tools and subtests that we use for our psychoeducation evaluations electronically in all one place. So we've been utilizing that for the last few years.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions?
Yes, just thank you for the walkthrough. I was wondering how we use it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for providing the evaluation information as well. Move on to 5.3, which is with Severin Intermediate Holdings. Ms. Jackson?
Yep, that is for our college and career for Naviance. And that allows for us the tool that we utilize in order for us to be able to house our information for our students in preparation for their college and career.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this one?
I have a question.
Yep.
Please.
Yes. I think the documentation says there's a change in cost from the previous purchase. Do you recall what that change in cost is?
So at one point in time, we actually this contract actually was more. I know working with our supervisor, really looking at how efficient we're starting to be. With that, I believe it's a slight increase, but don't quote me on that, Dr. Yarborough, from the previous contract. But it's been within the last few years, it's been, relatively the same amount. It's not been much variance. But part of it is really how we've been asking people to utilize the product more so and doing our due diligence.
Okay, and this is not a sole source?
No.
Okay, thank you.
My question was just about utilization, just I know we've used this for a while. I know my children used it, and so I'm just curious how utilization is.
Yep. I think that we continue to explore other options that may be out there, but we know that our students are taking advantage and our employees are our staff are utilizing this product. So again, that's something that, Ms. Natalino has been doing her due diligence with her team and really looking at, even when we were looking at it, even for the folks who are in our middle school versus high school, seeing how folks are utilizing the product. And we see that people have continued to use that enough to be able to house information for our students. So again, long term, will we use Naviance? I could not answer that question. However, we do know that people are utilizing the product much more so than we have seen in the past.
Is red-handed?
Yes, good afternoon. One of the things that we identified in our Path to Excellence, which is our strategic operating plan, is the revamping and reimagining how we utilize Naviance. And so we have, under the guidance of Supervisor Natalino, put together a team of school counselors to look at student success plans and how we leverage Naviance, not just in the high school level, but in the middle school as well. As we continue to build out our college and career pathways, it's increasingly important that we understand what fields our students are interested in knowing more about, exploring, and becoming as they step out of the K-12 setting. So we have a focused plan around the utilization of Naviance and involving the school counselors in it as they're the ones to deliver it. It's something that we have not done consistently, but we are doing that now.
Thank you for that. All right, hearing nothing else on this, we'll go on to the next one, also with Severin Holdings. This one is for Power School Server. Mr. Brown? Or is there somebody else available to speak on this? So this is for regarding the server that hosts Power School, moving it out of the data center into the cloud. And there was cost benefit analysis information, which shows we're going to be saving money by doing it this way. So if I'm reading
I'll try to reach Mr. Brown. He may be working on the system issues to keep the system up and running, but I'll reach out to him.
I mean, I think I don't have any questions because they had the information's here about showing the cost benefit analysis, which is quite helpful. So that answers my questions.
I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
About it.
All right. So why don't we'll see if he's available. In the meantime, we'll move on, but we'll drop back to this so we can get if he's available. Otherwise, we'll talk about what we can do if he's not available. So we'll pause on that one and move on to 5.5, which is a purchase order with Total Communications, also with Mr. Brown. Might as well wait on this as well. And then there's Total Communications. I'm trying to see if 5.5 and 5.6 are similar here. So, and I'm being thrown off. It's not listing a name, but I assume that's Mr. Brown as well. So we'll pause on all those and drop back. And in the meantime, we'll move on to 6.1, the contract with All American Waste.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. This is for All American Waste for our dumpsters that we park at certain schools at all times, and some of them that we need for other garbage requirements. Contract is for $45,000. It was awarded through sealed bid, through the bidding process, and paid for through operational funds for facilities. Any of your questions?
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this?
No.
I had none either, so we will move on to the MOUs. So 7.1 is a memorandum of understanding with Yale University around a Yale teaching fellowship. Ms. Johnson?
Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. I am very happy to present this memo of understanding with Yale New Haven. I'm sorry, wrong hospital. Yale University and New Haven Public Schools. Yale University, in partnership with New Haven Public Schools, New Haven Promise, and Southern Connecticut State University, we've created a Yale Teacher Residency Program, where over the next 5 years, Yale has committed $10 million to help provide a pipeline for teachers to come into our profession and work in New Haven Public Schools. The partnership, and I want to introduce Christine Gentry, who is the new Yale Residency Director. She and I will be working closely together, and she will be spearheading this on the Yale side. So the partnership is to encourage the professionals, is to really build a pipeline for people who want to come into the teaching profession, paraeducators who want to become teachers, and current teachers who need their master's degrees. So this is in direct alignment with our strategic operating plan, specifically around developing talent and professional learning. We have 3 tracks. I'm sorry, I just lost my notes. Give me 1 second. We have 3 tracks for people to come into this residency program, where the goal is to have 104 teachers to be certified to be New Haven Public School educators with a master's degree, certified over the next 5 years. In track 1, we have new teachers. Well, they'll be using an apprenticeship model with a mentor teacher, and they'll be doing coursework. There's about 10 teachers with bachelor, 10 people with bachelor's degrees, and they'll be focusing on special education, math, or science for that track. Track 2 will be focusing on our paraeducators, and they will be, again, doing coursework. That's a 2-year program. They will also be provided with a living stipend, which will total about $46,000. They'll have their paraprofessional play with the addition to that. And again, all of these tracks are really going to be heavily intensive in coursework. And then track 3, we have current teachers who want their master's degree in special education only, and that will again provide coursework. And all of those teachers will be placed within New Haven Public Schools over that time period, and they will commit to 3 years working in New Haven once they're done with their coursework. So that's kind of like a quick snapshot.
Wonderful. So any comments or questions? Sorry, any comments or questions related to this one? I'm certainly not an expert on these types of teaching fellowship programs. Is this unique in the world, or is this
no, not at all. Many states and universities have this. I was on the interview committee. Dr. Gentry, she actually worked and was a director for the NYU teacher residency program with New York City Public Schools. So she has a huge background in doing this level of work. So I don't know if, I asked her to come on because if you had any specific questions, I know she can answer them for you. So again, they do this in many states where, districts or school systems grow their own teacher pipeline.
I'll just say I think this is wonderful. So thank you for the presentation, and I recommend that this is mentioned to the full board on Monday, because it's definitely well needed, and it's just something I think the superintendent might want to cover in her superintendent's report, just to make sure everybody hears about this.
Hi, I have a question in terms of, thank you so much for presenting this. And my question is, there's a focus on New Haven Public Schools, but I think it said, I have my little one here, and I think it said that there is, if people don't commit to New Haven Public Schools, then they'll need to commit to another alliance district within Connecticut. And so my question is, how do we help maybe ensure that as New Haven Public Schools, the professionals are committed to New Haven Public Schools. Thank you.
I don't know if Christine, if you want to jump in on that one. Good.
Sure. Hello. I'm so happy to be here. Really, really excited about this fellowship and partnership. Great question, Dr. Yarborough. So first of all, the 3-year commitment can be completed at another Alliance district only if there are no vacancies in that subject area here in New Haven Public Schools. And the 3 subject areas that we are training teachers in is math, science, and special education. So the likelihood of there being 0 openings across the entire district is very, very low. But we wanted to put in some language about how to complete that commitment if for some reason, right, there is no opening across the entire district.
Great. Thank you for the clarification and insight. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And this is great news.
That's it.
Great investment by the university in the district, and us all into Southern too, because that's where the training will be taking place as well. So it's great partnerships. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Gentry. All right. So we will move on to 7.2, which is an MOU with the city for the 2 positions in the Corporation Counsel's office. My one question before we get started on this is that the information that's posted seems to be the exact same information which was posted previously, where there were some questions. And so if that could be, I don't know if that was intended or, but if that could be incorporated in any comments. It's not listed as to who's to speak on this. Okay. Attorney Alexiadis?
So we can reflect the comments before the Board of Ed meeting. I think one of the principal ones is prorating the amount of the budget transfer, depending on when the vacancies are filled, which both positions are vacant.
Yeah, I think there was that, and there was also clarification around the language that the superintendent would be extremely instrumental in the selection of these folks so that we make sure that we have people appropriate for the school district. So I think those are the 2 things that I recall.
Yeah, and that part has been the practice going forward in terms of when we're interviewing for the positions.
Right. I just think we had questions about if that was accurately or adequately reflected in the MOU.
I'll take another pass at that and make sure that that's reflected. That's the charter requires that attorneys come under the control of rather ultimately work in Corporation Counsel's office. So, but Corporation Counsel has no desire to install someone over a Board of Ed against the superintendent's wishes.
Understood.
And in fact, superintendent
wasn't suggesting that was the case, but was just suggesting that I don't recall it was adequately reflected in the MOU language itself.
So,
I'm comfortable moving this forward if this is going to have an update to it. Okay, and if we could see that Thursday or Friday, otherwise we'll just table it at the meeting. So. Any other comments or questions related to this one? All right, hearing none, we'll go on to the MOU for the using funds to have, this is the nurse for Head Start. Ms. Derwin?
Yes, this is the MOU between the City of New Haven Board of Health and the school district, more specifically Head Start, for the reimbursement of the cost of 1 registered nurse at the Dr. Reginald Mayo Building. There is a range based on the nurse that will be hired between $61,000 and $72,000. This is budgeted for in the Head Start grant. And the purpose of this is to provide equitable services to all the preschool students in the city and have aligned health policies, procedures, and the benefit of professional development for the nurses under the city's health umbrella.
All right, thank you for that. Any comments or questions? So I've been hearing about this in the Head Start committee meetings, and so and as you said, this is written into the grant. My only question was in terms of the salary. This lists the salary range. Are we also covering benefits? And if so, we should have an estimate of what those could be and have those in here if we are going to be transferring those funds over to the health department.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody has an answer to that now, but if that's the case, then this would be increasing. I don't know what for this particular bargaining unit, the 40% or something increase. So we could get a clarification on that.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure, yeah, Attorney Alexiadis?
You know, I don't recall the benefits were, seeing as I drafted this, I don't recall that it benefits were part of the discussion. So we will need to circle back with the our department and the health department to figure that out.
Okay.
I also just had a question. Is the committee comfortable with approving a range? Because I expect that they won't know the exact number until the person's hired, where they get plugged into that range. I can draft it so that it says up to the top range if that's preferable.
I just think for clarification that if we said up to, probably would. I'm fine with it either way. We don't have any language or policy that says that it has to be exact, but so he's showing the range, then we can assume that it's going to be somewhere in that range, and that it could be the maximum number, but not to exceed the maximum number. So I'm comfortable with it either way, with the caveat of getting the information about the benefits if we're going to be increasing this for that. Ms. Hannons,
Yes. Let me make sure you can hear me, right? So I'm not on mute.
Yes.
Normally what happens is that if it's being paid out of a city account, we don't build in the benefits. The city has their own way on how they charge the grants for the benefits. So it's only the special funds where it's actually on special funds that you will see additional costs like FICA, Medicare, and all that other good stuff that goes with being on a grant. But because the city is covering this cost, they don't build in benefits on this.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So these numbers are the numbers, and they won't be increasing. Thank you very much.
And then the range is basically because they have not hired the person yet, so we don't know what it's going to come in as. So this is what the union contract ranges from step 1 up to, I don't know how far this went, but that's why there's a range there instead of an actual amount.
Okay.
Once we find out what the actual amount is in future MOUs, we will put, the next step for the next year because we'll have that amount.
All right. Thank you for those explanations, Ms. Hannons.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this one? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the certifications and resolutions section, which is the resolution related to the Regional Water Authority. And my question on this is, I saw by email that there was some additional information, and I don't know if it's been posted. So I'm looking at the materials now, and I'm wondering if it's all posted. but let's see who's
Mr.
not
Chairman.
listed as to who's speaking on this one.
So, you know, Mr. Carter and or I can address this. I'm happy to address this, but we should have persons from RWA in the waiting room. I'm just
Who's in the waiting
if
room?
you could let
Bring
them in.
over.
It's Jody Driscoll, who's Attorney Jody Driscoll, who's the attorney for RWA, and Orville Kelly. And I don't think that, you know, also who worked on this was Special Corporation Counsel John Ward. There's a John in the waiting room, but I don't think that's him.
Okay, so at our last meeting, we heard about this pretty extensively. So, and there was some questions. And so if we could just hear the highlights as to what is new in this. And
yeah, and let me just add, Mr. Chairman, that as you noted, I circulated this afternoon revised versions of both the narrative and the easement that you know to address the concerns that were raised, and also a survey that I don't think that you all had seen, and some other documents that were posted in connection with the agenda 3 weeks ago. One of us can screen share if but the committee member, they were emailed to all 3 committee members earlier today. So what's your pleasure on that? Because you probably want to see the language.
I mean, we received it. I looked at it, and I request that it's posted, you know, as soon as possible in the morning, if not today, so that the public and others have access to the materials as well. So,
and so I think Attorney Driscoll can address the changes that she made, or I can pull it up and identify it too. But
okay.
I think Attorney Driscoll or Mr. Kelly are fine to do that.
Thank you.
Jody, good afternoon, everyone. Orville Kelly here with the Regional Water Authority, manager of design and construction. In terms of the information that was, I guess, changed or added to per some of the questions that were raised the last time, I'm going to try and share my screen here. Here we go.
Or well, I can speak to them in more of like a summary format if you'd like while you're sharing.
Please feel free to.
Yeah, so if you're going to go with map first, or you the easement first?
Yeah, I'll go with the easement first. This is the easement.
Okay. Oh, the easement agreement, not the map.
I could grab that also.
Okay. And I think I could just talk to it. I don't know if you have to have it open. So basically, we had prepared a form of easement agreement that was shared with John Ward from Corporate Counsel's office, as well as Attorney Alexiades. And after we presented to you all at the last meeting and received your feedback, we went back through that agreement with the attorneys from the city to refine some language in there. In particular, the city added certain indemnification, hold harmless provisions, as well as language regarding insurance requirements. So there were some changes. Actually, the majority of the changes were to do that. In addition, we had made some cleanup changes. There were some blanks in the agreement that are now completed. There was a reference to a easement map that had been prepared some time ago, but that has since been updated. So that language was added to make that change. We also included a legal description of not only the easement area, but there was also initially in the agreement a temporary construction area that would be used for a short portion of time while the construction is ongoing. So that was added to clarify that. There was language added as well to make sure that the RWA is responsible for maintenance of the easement area. And that would include, snow and ice removal, as well as landscaping maintenance within the perimeter. It also gives them a right to install that fence and to keep that as a secured area. And what other additions did we make? We also just made some general cleanup changes to the agreement. We also put together a summary, a narrative of the need for this easement, as well as what we intend to do in terms of maintenance, landscaping. One of the things that we've talked to your council about is the RWA is very much committed to taking on the responsibility for the maintenance, working with the Board of Ed and the staff at the school to make sure the fencing and the landscaping is, reasonably satisfactory to your organization. But right now we are sort of, it's a little early for putting in very key specifics into the agreements on that because this is still in the design phase. So we do have language in this narrative that talks about the RWA cooperating with and communicating with members of the Board of Ed or the school to, get their feedback during that planning process. And, as we've expressed, it didn't make sense to add that specific language yet because those specifics are not finalized. And it also, we thought, was better for both parties if that language was not specifically defined in the agreement, because as you see our design, you might decide you want to see something a little different. We might need to tweak things a bit. So again, since this is permanent in nature, it seemed to make the most sense from our perspective. And I think your council agreed to leave those things open-ended a bit so that those can be worked out as the design and construction progresses. And Orville, do you want to put up the map now? We can show that, what's the easement area, the permanent easement area, as well as the temporary area.
While you're still on the easement, can I jump in here?
Of course.
So the narrative does address UI, what a trade risk school was just talking about, UI's not UI, RWA's commitment to working with Board of Ed and school staff in terms of coming up with appropriate landscaping. And the easement does, I'm not sure if Attorney Driscoll mentioned, the easement does indicate the RWA's landscaping maintenance obligations. So that was addressed in the easement.
And then Orville has put up on the screen to share with you. This is the easement map, the large area with, I think it's a dotted. Sorry, my eyes are not so great. The dotted area.
It's this area right here.
That is the permanent easement area. And then the other portion that has, I think, diagonal lines right there would be the temporary construction easement area. That would be an area for laydown and staging and construction related materials during the construction phase, possibly some grading to make sure that what's being done in the permanent easement area doesn't run into that area, and provides the appropriate access to do this the work in the easement area. And that again would only be for a temporary period.
Right. Okay, so thank you for that. Are there any comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Wilcox.
Please.
Yes, I received the documents this afternoon, so thank you very much for sending them and taking the conversation that we had previously and working on that. I do think the information will help our larger board know a little bit more about what is in the plan. I just had one question as it relates to process, whether our district has gotten feedback from the school as it relates to this information. I know the board can make a decision, I guess, without the school's feedback, but it might be useful for them to be involved and included now that we have some more information, the drawings, just to hear initially. So I'm open to pushback on that, but I know for other things, we've consulted some of the school leadership just to hear initial responses.
All right. Does anybody know if the school's been consulted? Attorney Alexiadis? Attorney Alexiadis, you look like you're frozen, or are you? I think you have a bad connection, sir.
Extensive email back and forth that we engaged in with it. Well, I can see and hear you, and y'all are moving. Can you hear me?
Now we
My
can.
internet connection is unstable.
Okay. So I think we missed pretty much everything you said.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
So now you can hear me. The school leadership.
Well, I think we just lost them. Ms. Camacho?
Oh, yes, I supervise this building. Mr. Carter and I have been in contact in how to best loop in the school and get their feedback. So that is in the works. But that is a great point, Dr. Yarborough. So that is going to happen. I do know that Principal Davis did reach out to Mr. Carter on setting up a meeting just to get an update and overview. I believe that's in the works. Not sure if it's happened yet, but I do know that's in the works, and they will be contacted because I believe that the work in the afternoon will probably impact dismissals for their late programs. Just the way they run the buses around Foxen Road and towards the bend, it may impact them. So we definitely are looking forward to those meetings happening quite shortly.
Yeah, and also includes school bus transportation as well as security.
Absolutely. So we will have a meeting of the minds to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, and the people that need to know have some feedback from the school staff, security, and transportation, as well as facilities.
Great. Thank you so very much.
All right. Well, hearing nothing else on this. I think we still have a few purchase orders to talk about. If Mr. Brown is available, Mr. Carter? You know.
Chris has come into the room. If that's you, Mr. Brown, please raise your hand. Mr. Carter, can you just give a quick text to him to see if he's in the meeting before we've been on a good run, not getting Zoom bombed, not trying to break it now.
Right. Dr. White, he's on his cell phone.
Oh, he is in the audience?
Yeah, he's on his cell phone, so you probably wouldn't see his name. It is, let's see.
Oh, he raised his hand. Yep.
Yeah,
We got him.
974-9928.
Hey, Mr. Brown, you're in.
Are you able to hear us, Mr. Brown?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now hear you.
Okay, sorry for the delay.
All right, thank you for joining us. And we had some comments or questions related to the purchase order with Severin Immediate Holdings for the Power School server.
Yes, so the Power School server is currently an antiquated server that Dell no longer supports that's on site. It was implemented by them, although the IT department or Board of Ed did have to pay for it. But it's not really feasible to keep a server with such importance on site when we have an opportunity for it to be maintained and made as a cloud device. They back it up. They support the applications. But when we keep it on site, we have like dry failures or such like we had earlier in the year. It puts the district at risk. So that's the cost. And overall, there's a cost analysis and the purchase information to keep it as a cloud.
All right, thank you. And Dr. Yarbrough, you had some questions?
Yes, thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for presenting this and providing the documentation and cost analysis. I have two basic questions. One is, I can see that there are immediate cost savings as it relates to replacing the servers now versus moving to the cloud system. But it seems like that this process has us perpetually relying on Power School cloud services for the foreseeable future. So I recognize that initially we don't shell out a lot of money, but after 5 years, after 6 years, we're just going to keep paying for cloud service. So that's one question, if you could speak to that cost analysis. And the second question is, what is the difference between the new services or new servers rather for 2025 and the upgraded servers for 2029 in the cost benefit analysis you provided?
Well, for one, yeah, we would wind up paying for services from Power School year after year, but those costs that we're paying are the same costs that we're paying if we were to get servers on site again. The other thing is we now have a failover data center, and in which case, if there's an issue at 54 Meadow where the server is hosted, access to Power School would be down for everywhere until whatever was resolved, whereas opposed to now, if we have an issue with 54 Meadow or somewhere else, access to Power School and the information is continuous. So I hope that answers your first question. The other question is just the cost of servers. We'd actually have to purchase two because we do have redundant sites if we were to host it on site again and then find a way to keep them in sync. Because you don't want to corrupt your own data with multiple sites. So the cost of servers continually rise as we go through, as we add more data, as we add more processing, we keep adding more applications to it. These are things that can be virtualized and enabled when needed, as opposed to waiting for a server to expire from service to no longer receive updates or patching from OS standpoint. So I think that's the answer to your second question. Am I off on that, or?
I don't know that you're off. I'm also increasing
Okay.
understanding as we speak. So
The cost of servers
so
constantly increases, basically, right? So whether it's storage or processing or just having the physical casings change model to model, vendor to vendor, the price has gone up. So, for example, the server that they purchased, I believe, I honestly don't know when they purchased it, but I know it's probably, let's say, 10 years old. The cost of having that server replaced now has increased, not to mention the wear and tear, in which case you're in a dire situation. For example, the drive that failed to a stack of drives is no longer replaceable. So the only option would be to spend $30,000 to buy one new server, but wait, you have to buy two now. So now it's $60,000. And you kind of stuck behind a gun because you can't replace the hardware that's in the current server you have, even though it doesn't cost that much. You can't replace it. You can't take the chance that you lose the data. Those are the costs of having stuff on site.
thank you.
And then they can forecast how much it would cost to buy new equipment.
Okay, thank you. So I think I get what you're describing, but I also see that the hosting expense for Power School is increasing over the 5 years, and it's just going to continue to increase. So, I mean, I see the short-term solution in this, but I actually don't see the long-term cost savings. It just looks like we are kicking the cost down the road, which we may have to do in this current fiscal season. So one, I want you to ask if you have insight on that. I mean, because this makes us reliant on this cloud-based service through Power School. And my other question is, are there other cloud hosting companies that can host our data versus us bundling everything into Power School, which just makes us increasingly reliant on them, versus if we had another company that provided cloud service that perhaps could be competitive for what Power Schools provides as it relates to cloud hosting service?
There's a few cloud platforms that are out there. Most of these applications, and this is just from my experience, and as you all know, I'm relatively new to K-12. But regardless, whichever the application is, or whichever the environment is, there's a few cloud hosting platforms. There's Amazon, there's Google, there's Microsoft, there's IBM. Anyone who has an application is writing on one of those. The processing, the CPU, the memory, it's all virtualized. If we were to use another platform besides Power School, they probably want to use the same type of platform. Being as there's so many parts to Power School, layers to it. I mean, if we wanted to get our own Amazon subscription and then find a way to host Power School that way, we could do that, but then we'd be stuck with whatever Amazon wanted to charge, the same way with Microsoft, Google, whoever. The benefit of having them do it or make the arrangement would be that they're owning the support for the infrastructure. They're owning the charge. If there's a markup and there's too much that we don't want to do and we want to look for a different type of Power School application, we can do that during the year and find a competitive price. But there's a migration that's going to be involved with that to go from the Power School app to, say, XYZ school app. We'd have to figure out what all that was. I'm not still 100% on everything that we are in, per se, in bed with Power School. But the teachers and the health department and a lot of the city functions seem to need it, which makes it a very important app, which means that we need to pay for it.
Understood. Thank you.
It's not a cost that we could just offset easily to save money on. There are some things probably in IT that I can find ways to trim over time, but it seems like Power School is one of the urgent ones that we need.
Thank you. I think it would be worth going through the exercise of seeing what it would cost if, let's say, Amazon servers uh, were our cloud hosting provider, if that's even possible.
I think it's
And
possible.
yeah, I mean, I would be curious to see what the cost is. I mean, I think we are further and further entrenched in power schools such that there is no competition for them as it relates to our district. And I think the more we put all of our eggs in the basket of power school, for one, the more we will not want to move away from them, even if a better or different option comes, because of not just the migration costs, but also um, kind of what it would take to learn a new system. You know, I acknowledge that's not an insignificant adjustment. It would be a significant adjustment. Um, but thank you very much for kind of walking me through those topics.
Okay. But there's just one other side to, like, if the Board of Ed decided that we want to start, offloading some of these other vendors, like say we wanted to do our own hosting for Power School, then we'd have to also, find people that were skilled with managing those cloud platforms as well. So there's not a it's pay one way or pay the other, essentially.
Yes, understood. Thank you for the insight.
Dr. White, did you want to add something, or I saw your hand was up previously?
Just for Dr. Yorbo's benefit, right now there are very relatively few K-12 student information systems, and unfortunately, Power School has bought up most of them. The second largest one is Infinite Campus that most districts use, but in this area, while it technically can't be called a monopoly, it is moving towards that as they've bought up every other company, and almost every other reporting system that we require at the state and federal level speaks to Power School, which is one of what kind of has locked them in many regions.
Thank you. That's helpful information and insightful for me to hear. Good for Power School. I don't know if it's good for us as districts for that potential monopoly to be there. But thank you very much. That helps me understand.
And I'll just add, after going through the documentation and the analysis, two things. One is this mentions that there's multiple servers, hardware that would have to be replaced if we were going to go that route. And then the other thing is, my understanding is this is just a 1-year deal. This is not, while the projections show the cost saving analysis over 5 years, nothing would preclude us from switching to one of these other systems that Dr. White was just referring to. And in fact, it would seem to me this makes it easier because we're not making a big investment in the hardware. So it'd be something that might make it a bit easier to switch, because we won't be sitting around going, well, we just spent all this money on all these servers that are not suitable for other purposes. So
that's a good point. Yeah, thank you.
So I just wanted to clarify that. Am I correct? And this is truly a 1-year thing that we can choose to do things differently in the future if we need to. Because it's the way it's presented here is it's a 1-year.
It's a 1-year.
Okay. So thank you for that. The next then, the 5.5 and 5.6 are two purchase orders with Total Communications. One is listed as to provide IT school level project support, and the other is to provide IT district level project support. So if we could have an overview of these two.
My understanding is last year, in the previous years, there were several, let's say like the school has network jacks or they need to install network jacks. Total Communications is the vendor of choice for running cables to and from data closets, repairing them, that type of work. So these are basically re-ups on the purchase orders that would be used as, say, blanket checks, where they would do the funding and they would base any of the type of break fix work on those POs during the year. So there was an ask in advance to set up these with the idea that any costs for maintenance, support, or on-site remedial work would fit within the budgets of these two.
Okay, and the distinction between them is one is basically the stuff that's going to be happening in schools, and the other's going to be happening at 54 Meadow or in data centers.
Correct. Or links between the schools. Like one could be isolated between, like for example, I believe there were monitors purchased for Hill House. Well, there's networking that's required for those display monitors. So, you know, they could write a PO against the work at Hill House and then write a separate PO for work done at maybe Cross. Whereas if there was a networking project like the firewall project, there was an issue and needed support that was inter-district wide, then they would write their PO to the district wide one.
All right. I'm going to just request that the two accompanying memos for these, that the field that says what specific service will the contractor provide, that if we just add a few sentences to each of these two so that it's a little more descriptive as to what this is. I know we've worked with this vendor before and they're selected off a state contract. So I understand those things too, but just to kind of clarify, I think we had a couple more sentences added to that.
I can do that. I honestly didn't know how to write those up, so I more so just reused and updated the ones from last year with the understanding that that's what they were. But I have no problems with updating those, so I can update those tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions related to these two items? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for popping on. And I think that was everything on the action item agendas. So I will make the motion now. I move that we send to the board with a recommendation to approve these 3 abstracts, these 10 agreements, 6 purchase orders, 1 contract, 3 memorandum of understanding, and 1 certification resolution.
Second.
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes.
President Rivera?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So those are the action items. Move into reports or updates, discussion items. Next one is quarterly part-time custodial update. Just as a reminder on this, we had asked for quarterly updates because there were cost overruns. I think it was due to overtime was the listed reason that we heard about late in the year. So we decided to ask for these quarterly. So that's the background on 10.1. Is there somebody able to speak if we're on track for part-time custodial budget?
Yeah. Good evening. This is Mike Carter. The part-time custodial contract is in July and August, we did have some additional hours charged to us, which we have decided not to pay. And the reason why is we have a baseline of $462,000 and so many hours. We have 186 part-times, and we know that all of those do not come to work every day. They're call-ins or call-outs rather. And we have asked for SJ Services to give us a list so that we can verify the folks that called in. If we have 186 people who are due and only 160 people show up, we are to be credited 26 no-shows, as well as be provided an automated list from their call-in system, which was to be provided 2 years ago, which they have not provided. So I have been in touch with the vice president as well as the president, we're meeting Friday because we need to reconcile the hours that are actually worked, but also there's a piece that we have to watch because there are additional hours that are incurred due to special events, permits, etc. And SJ Services has not been able to provide those hours. I know we keep a spreadsheet on our end. We meet every week on the permits, and we keep a spreadsheet of hours for security and extra hours for custodial. And we can basically verify if the hours that are being charged are valid. At this point, SJ Services cannot separate out the custodial hours versus the special services hours, special events. So that's why we're meeting this Friday to make sure that we get the 3 or 4 things that we've been asking them every Friday on our Zoom meeting to provide us.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions?
Yes, just thank you for having those conversations and doing due diligence to try to understand what's happening, and also so that we can pay for the things we should be paying for. So thank you very much.
I'll just say yes, thank you. It's reassuring to know that there's eyes on this, and
we'll provide some financial data shortly, but I want to make certain that we get this meeting done and importantly segment out the permitted events. I will say that the permitted events are running at the same level or either ahead of what we have been doing for the past 2 years. And I'm also on the committee task force for FLAC, and when FLAC is fully up and running, there's going to be a demand for more events at FLAC, and that's going to be driving up costs as well for custodial as well as security. And I am working on the gap analysis for security, but we just have to keep that in mind that when FLAC is fully operational, there's going to be more events in the evenings and on weekends.
thank you for that.
For those events, yes, thank you. For those events, are we now able to reflect those facility custodial costs when those events are booked, like whether the district pays or whether people
if they're tier 1, we cannot charge them. We are looking at grants that will help offset. We have had a couple tier 2 and tier 3 events where there's half payment or full payment, but all of those events unfortunately are tier 1, which there's no charge.
Okay.
What I would recommend is what I had in another city where we have a separate budget for special events that does not eat into other costs. Because in another city, we did not have a special event budget set aside. And what it did when it came time to hire full-time people, the overtime ran into my personnel costs and we could not hire full-time people. So we was in this endless cycle of cost overruns.
Understood. Thank you. Are we able to track or put somewhere, let's say, in-kind donation as it relates to the tier 1 activities, where even if we don't charge, we're able to document what it would be or what we are paying?
Yes, we can easily do that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
If there's a time where the district, Mr. Carter or the superintendent, if you want to open up discussions on the special events and charging and things like that for it, we're more than happy to add it to the calendar and have the discussions.
Yeah, and also if that is the case, it'll be a policy change. So of course we'll have to come to you.
Yeah, the policy. I mean, us but then it would go to the governance committee and the board after that. But so definitely, we're happy to give space to this in our discussion calendar whenever you all.
Will do.
Hearing nothing else on this, we'll go on to 10.2, which was the update on the plans for the part-time custodial contract. It previously was testified to that there was plans or discussion to consider putting this back out to bid. So just wondering if there's an update.
Dr. White, do you have the PowerPoint presentation I sent, or I can either share it?
I did not receive one. What time was it sent? Or
It was sent early today, but I can, if you allow me to share, I can share the presentation. It's brief.
yes, you have sharing ability.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay. Are we in Outlook, right? Or Teams?
No, you can, if you just click on the document, it should be open. You shouldn't have to send it.
Okay.
No.
All right.
So just double click, close out this, X this out,
Mm-hmm.
and then double click again on the recent custodial services, and it should open it.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Yep. Just X out at the top, this one where it says share at the top.
Okay, just exit.
Yep.
Okay.
And now go back in and double click on the document.
Okay.
Share again at the bottom.
Thank you.
Once you have it up, you should be able to.
Yeah. I need my 5-year-old nephew here to help me with this. Just briefly, I proposed a timeline, and there has to be some adjustments. But
Would you reshare your screen?
Is it
from Zoom? If you go back to Zoom and just share again.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No. Not yet. Yes, we can. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I put together a timeline, which I will sit down with Dr. Negrone and also the committee about the process for getting the RFP ready and sending to purchasing OpenGov. We would like to post the RFP no later than the first week of December, and have a pre-bid meeting in January, and have the committee review in February, starting in February. And we would hope to make a presentation to the Finance and Operations Committee, and with the selection and then take it to the Board of Ed in March. And also, we have to take the agreement, since it's a multi-year agreement, to the Board of Alders. The next slide, some things would recommend is that prior to issuing out an RFP, that we identified performance shortfalls in the current contract and install measures to ensure the best firms with sound financials, excellent performance rating, trained managers, and a vibrant recruiting and training program competes for the contract. It will take at least a month to do research and compare the New Haven Public Schools contract to other school custodial contracts in terms of performance and costs. One thing I recommend is that we also, those vendors that respond, is that we go and visit their sites to see their performance, and also how they train new personnel that work as in the custodial trade. I would like to set up an advisory group composed of teachers, principals, administrative staff, finance, and board members that have a diverse group of input. I even recommend that we have a member from the New Haven Federation of Teachers, because they have been very helpful in providing facilities and with feedback about things they would like to see done and things that need to be done. And they have, they're in all the schools, and they have insight that I don't have. Our school buildings are primary residence for students and teachers outside of their home. And also the schools are important to the community. The planning process is crucial. And I think the sooner we start, the better, putting together a review committee and make an award in late April, early March, so that the vendor can transition in while the current vendor transitions out. But we need to put in more controls that we didn't have in this contract, such as having the automated timekeeping system and the call-out system, where we can actually track the number of personnel to show up daily in each school. Any questions?
Yes, I just want to thank you for presenting the timeline, but also your notes in terms of what you recommend. I do agree with what's there, and getting multiple voices to be a part of the process to really understand the scope of what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I will add that I think looking at your timeline before the December 8th posting of the RFP, I think there's going to be calls for analysis on the costs of bringing some or all of this in-house.
Exactly.
And so I think we need to have some space for some information to be presented on that, so that we can see what's cost effective, what the true costs are.
Mm-hmm.
I know just from reading news reports, going back and researching this is there was cost savings in doing it this way, and it was done at a time when the district really needed to achieve some cost savings. We still typically do need to do that, but I think we need to have some new analysis based on the current bargaining units agreements as to what it would cost to bring this in-house, or to have some sort of hybrid where there's some positions that are done through this part-time custodial contract, maybe increasing. So we'll just need to see some financial analysis on that, please.
Yeah, I support your position.
All right, thank you. So we will, just trying to think, is the best way to do that? Should we create some space for that in November to talk about that in this meeting? Okay. So we'll work with, I'll work with Ms. DeMayo and with you and the superintendent as to which of the two meetings in November. But we'll definitely, there'll be calls to see it, and I want to see it as well.
Mhm.
And the rest of the committee members do too.
Mhm.
So we'll work with you to find the right date of the two dates. Thank you very much. Hearing nothing else on this, we will go to, as we do every year, the legal contract expenditure report has been posted. It's not listed as to who's speaking on that, Mr. Carter.
So you said the legal contract?
Yeah. I don't know who presented or prepared this.
Mr. Alexiad, are you on the call? Which firm is the contract with?
I'm here, although
Go ahead.
I didn't hear you, Mike.
Mr. Wilcock?
Yes, Ms. DeMayo.
And tell you that Selena Manning prepared their reports. There's a report on last year's expenditures, and then a report on expenditures up to date, with the exception of Bircham and Moses, because we're still getting invoices from them. I don't normally, that is an operations, so I wasn't sure who was presenting, but that is the information broken out.
All right, thank you. I mean, in a lot of ways, my only question was related to, there's two reports listed and you've answered that. One is the year to date and one is the 23-24 fiscal year. So that matches what we've post every October. And so the public and anybody else can view our legal expense information. So are there any comments or questions related to this? I had done it straightforward, matches up with last year in terms of formatting and the information presented. So, all right, hearing nothing else on that, or just we're going to be listing our discussion calendar, which is item 10.4. Just moving forward, we're going to have this in every meeting, so that as changes or updates, we're keeping that up to date, and anything can be added if there's requests. We can do that. So that's just a reminder, so everybody has a heads up on what's a coming. So next item is our purchasing policy update.
So good evening once again. Just come before you to provide you with an update on where we are with our purchasing policy. We have a designated staff from NHPS that have been meeting along with board member Wilcox, reviewing language, making some changes to language. So for example, instead of just professional services, really looking at professional and educational services. And how does that look with the procurement policy, given that we want to make sure we are closely aligned with the city policy. So we've made some changes. We have sent the draft policy to Shipman and Goodwin, also to review for clarification of language, for recommendations, to make sure that as we are, we work in the city, we know we are functioned by our own Board of Ed as well as the state. So to make sure that we are owning our responsibilities in the plan as well. The policy should be back this week and ready to discuss with the city by the end of the week, beginning of next week for a meeting.
Right, thank you. Are there comments or questions?
I have a question.
Please.
Yeah, so thank you for everyone's work on this and collaboration, organization. And also thank you for the red line version of the document to see where the changes are. Just a question about the 20% change order. So it says that the change amount should not total more than 20% of the total cost. But then it says in cases where it does exceed 20%, we follow the City of New Haven policies and procedures regarding the change order. Um, I'm just curious about that because it doesn't prevent us from doing it or presenting it, but it says if we do, we have to follow the City of New Haven's policies. What are those policies as it relates to change orders? Because I'm wondering if for some of these vendors, when we seek to renew a contract or like maybe we should actually set it for the amount that we project is going to be.
Attorney Alexiadis, can you speak to this?
So the change orders are limited to 20%. Typically, when we have agreements that where the amount is going more than that, then we amend the agreement rather than do a change order. Change orders go through the go to the change order committee, which has that 20% limit, and it typically really ought to only apply to certain kinds of agreements. Construction, like construction contracts, purchase order approval. All that being said,
You're breaking up again, sir.
Change order committee at all.
Oh, we can't.
Others in my office do.
You're breaking up.
But we changes going forward as change orders, where some are true change orders and other amendments. So we just need to look at that and bring it to. We need to look at that and bring it to and have that disc office.
Attorney Alexiadis, you broke up during your response. We couldn't hear you.
I wonder if you turn off your video and say that last part, if that would help, just in terms of the bandwidth.
And if I can just do this, this language is here. I added this in there because there were concerns about change orders. And I just request that the district staff and the Corp Council staff and the purchasing staff look at this to add whatever language needs to make this clear, and so that we're in compliance with city policies, etc. And anything that helps this along. And if anybody else had any comments or questions related to this item, they would please send it to the superintendent, to myself, to the committee, and to Attorney Alexiadis. We will make sure that it is talked about by the dozen or so people that have been working on this. So
thank you. I support that.
So rather than wordsmithing this language, just it's needs to be looked at by the people that are well versed in the city purchasing policies around this, so that we can clarify the language.
Yes, I would add just for process as it relates to change orders, for conversation for those who are working on this policy with the city. I think sometimes the board gets into a predicament where we say, oh, it's above 20%, but then it's the city that has to officially go through its process to say whether or not it's an allowed change. I wonder if there's a process where the city will go through its part first, and then it will come to the board already with a recommendation for the city that it's an okay or acceptable modification. So not necessarily for discussion now, but maybe those who are working with the city and Mr. Wilcox, as you're a part of this group, that could be a conversation topic so that when the board receives it, we know a little more clearly in the larger board meetings what we're deciding on.
So I'll follow this up in the morning with an email to the people working on this to please take a look at that language specifically, in addition to whatever other changes that they're looking at, so that it is clarified and up to standards. And this is new. In addition, we did not have any language in our current purchasing policy, which the board passed in 2020, that Ms. DeMayo and Dr. Joyner and others worked on. So this is an addition, and so we want to make sure that it is correct. So, any other comments or questions on this? Hearing none, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it was moved by President Rivera and seconded by Dr. Yarborough. President Rivera?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.